some information about choosing the correct Zoom channel based on your preferred language. So if you are a monolingual English speaker, please select the world-like interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen, then select English. If you're using Zoom via a telephone or a tablet, you will select the 3 dots to see more options, followed by interpretation and then English. I will now pass the mic over to Lingüística to review instructions in Spanish.
Thank you. Buenas tardes. Este es un recordatorio de que estamos proveyendo interpretación simultánea al español. Si usted desea escuchar la junta en español e ingresó con una computadora, va a ver el icono de un mundo en la parte de abajo. Por favor, seleccione el canal de español. Si usted ingresó con un teléfono móvil o una tableta, va a tocar su pantalla. Va a haber 3 puntitos donde dice más o more. Seleccione donde diga interpretación de idioma. Después seleccione español y por último es muy importante que seleccione donde diga done, listo, finalizado, terminado para que pueda escuchar la junta completamente en español. Gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi again, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to our September CSC meeting. My name is Vanessa Gomez, and I'm very excited to be here with you today once again. Today, I am joined by my colleagues, Dr. Amy Ramos, who is here today to support the overall AB617 implementation in the Valley and supporting our live streaming, and Jessica Silva, who is present today to support with technical support by monitoring online engagement, taking notes, action items, and co-facilitating. Please don't hesitate to reach out to our team if you have any questions at any time. You can direct message us on the chat if you do. I am also joined today by our co-host, Bianca Santoyo, who I'd like to give special thanks to for taking the initiative to volunteer as Chapter's co-host tonight. On behalf of the H&Co team, I'd like to express how honored and humbled we feel to facilitate with you in this space tonight. We're excited to witness what we can achieve together at these CSC meetings. And we want to assure you that we are here to support you in any way that you need. Bianca, if you feel comfortable sharing a few words, I'd like to pass the mic on to you.
No sé si me escuchan, lo voy a cambiar, es que estábamos en interpretación de español, pero lo voy a hacer en inglés ahorita. Can you hear me now? Yes, or? Yes. Okay. So I wanted to thank you all for giving me the space because we have community leaders here that have been here for years. They've gathered, and I'm very proud of these ladies that have been fighting for projects to come in the community, and especially because these projects have helped their families, their family, friends, their community. And now that we are seeing the fruit of a lot of the AB617, now that incentives are coming to the community, we're still fighting for them. We're still working on every single piece, but I feel very proud that projects that are coming down to the communities, they're seeing them, they're actually taking advantage of these projects and that have affected their community. And now, as I'm telling you, I feel very proud of these ladies. I'm happy that I'm here with them. It's been after 5 months being out and being back here and prepping with the ladies. They are ready to go and they're eager to see those incentive funds coming down to the community. So I know that we've been working right now for the filtrations, the green belts, the green barriers, things like that, even the pesticides, everything is included in the whole mix. And each one of them has contributed immensely, from small comments to support to anything. And I'm very proud of them, so.
Thank you so much, Bianca, for your heartfelt response, your vulnerability, and your courage. We really appreciate it. And like I said, we're really excited to work with you and see what we can accomplish together. So to make sure that everyone here on this call is aware of what responsibilities Bianca will be in charge of during the meeting, Jessica, if it's okay with you, can you please clarify what her role will be in the CSE meeting?
Yes, sorry, I'm not sure. Was that for me or for Jessica Silva?
Sorry, Jessica Olson. I'll clarify next time. Yes,
no, I was
thank
making
you.
sure I didn't want to step on toes, certainly. So yes, I just want to welcome you all and certainly thank you. And it's been we've kind of been, I would say, hit or miss, definitely based on, I think, availability and interest and time to pour kind of some of yourself into prepping for the meeting. So we're really grateful to have a co-host for this meeting. The co-host responsibilities have ranged, and we've certainly worked with Bianca and asked Bianca to really be a part specifically about some of the decisions we want to make with you today. Certainly excited, as Bianca mentioned, to talk primarily about how some of these incentives can go further and help enhance the lives of the residents in the Shafter community. So really looking forward to that discussion and really any discussion and any feedback you have for us today. We have a few slides to help navigate our discussion a little bit later. But other than that, I just want to welcome you all and thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you so much for that, Jessica. Okay, so next, I would like to provide some space to Peter Nguyen and one of the undergraduate students on their research team who will be sitting in on Shafter meetings to introduce themselves. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thank you so much, Vanessa and Jessica. Yeah, thank you for giving us the space to quickly introduce ourselves. But my name is Peter Nguyen. I'm currently a grad student at UC Davis, working on the AB617 implementation research study with Professor Jonathan London. As I'm sure you know, we were part of putting the convening the past 2 years together. And I'm sure you've seen my face at a lot of meetings, or at least my name pop up in a lot of the meetings. Yeah, we're really excited to continue our research, and we have new undergrad students coming to the team. And so we wanted to introduce you all so you know all the names that have popped into these meetings. Yeah, I'll introduce Anna, who'll be joining the Shafter community specifically. And then, yeah, if folks have any questions about our research study or anything, I'll put my email in the chat as well. So you can feel free to email me if anything comes up or if you have any questions or for clarification. But we'll be here observing the CSC meetings moving forward, and I'll pass it over to Anna to quickly introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a fourth year at UC Davis studying English and International Relations, and I just joined the team this summer, so thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Peter and Anna, for those introductions. And thank you all today for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. We value your ongoing commitment and your engagement in this process. We want to remind you that it is because of you that your community will be able to develop and implement new strategies to monitor air quality and help reduce health impacts in your community. I'd also like to thank those of you who attended the agenda setting meeting a couple weeks back. Today's agenda topics are designed to provide updates on action items from the previous meeting, facilitate a residential air filtration measure discussion, a discussion and potential vote on moving funds to support existing CERT measures, as well as standing updates. So now we'll continue through the rest of the housekeeping slides. Before we get started, we ask that you please mute yourself and make sure your full name and organization are showing as your screen name. To change your screen name, please click on the top right side of your picture or your video. CSC members can use the following naming convention: CSC-first name, comma, last name, for example, CSC-Jane Doe. And if you're a resident, you can use the naming convention R-first name, comma, last name. For all other participants, please use the naming convention first name, comma, last name, dash affiliation. For example, Jake Smith, dash AD. If you're on the Air District or California Air Resources Board, please use AD or CARB as your affiliation. For the general public, please use P. And for all other orgs, you can write your org name as the affiliation. Please note that the meeting host may update your screen name during the meeting. And now for today's agenda. So At 5, we have our welcome and introductions. 5:10, we'll be reviewing the action items on the tracker. At 5:20, we have a residential air filtration measure discussion. At 6 p.m., we will have a discussion about moving funds to supporting existing CERT measures, as well as a potential vote. At 6:30, we have standing updates. At 6:50, we have a wrap up, next steps, and agenda setting. And at 6:55, we'll have public comment for you all. I would now like to introduce Jessica Olson for welcoming remarks. Jessica, please go ahead whenever you're ready.
I think I shared earlier, so I'll definitely yield some time back. But just again, thank you. I think a couple folks have logged on since. Thank you all for being here and sharing your evening with us. And definitely a warm welcome to some of our kind of newer partners, including the UC Davis researchers. We're really happy to have more people continue to be engaged in this process. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Jessica. As you all know, transparency and accountability are vital for the success of AB617. To continue developing transparency and accountability, we continue to memorize action items during the meeting. The Air District has been consistent with updating action items developed during our meetings to ensure that community members' voices are heard and to track the progress being made toward implementing all of your suggestions. The most recent version of the action items tracker can be found on the Shafter CSC website or by clicking the link in the agenda. We know the Air District is actively working towards making progress in the action items. As Zong reviews the action items tracker updates, please feel free to ask for clarification if you need it. As a reminder, we create action items in real time during each CSC meeting and share those new ones at the end of the meeting. I encourage everyone who has suggestions or additions to any action items that should be tracked to please raise your hand and share those with us. I would now like to invite Zong to review the action items tracker. Zong, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zong, and I'm with the Valley Air District, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Vanessa, perfect, thank you. So let me know if you guys can see my screen okay. Looks okay. Let me know if it's big enough or if I need to enlarge it more. So let's go ahead and get started. So these are some of the action items from last month's meeting on August 8th. The first one was to connect with the Public Works Director to look at any possibilities of infrastructure options for Laredo and Central Valley. And we are still connecting with Steve. He was out for a couple weeks. So as soon as we hear back from him, we will let you all know. The next one is an item on vegetative barriers and some feedback, wanting to request a meeting for feedback on locations, and just wanted to share that we did schedule our first vegetative barrier subcommittee meeting, and it's for next Thursday at from 3 to 4. A calendar and an email appointment was sent out last week. So please let us know if you didn't receive it and want to attend this meeting, and we can get that out to you. The next item was to a request to work on the air filtration measure, and that is something that we will touch upon today and look at, including vulnerable populations as a part of that measure. The next item is wanting to get some feedback on the next lawnmower trade-in event, and we are planning to send out a poll after tonight's discussion where we will talk more about moving funds to this measure as well as other CERT measures. The other item is to partner and look for other funding sources for xeriscaping, and that is something we are still exploring. And once we have something to share with the CSC, we will definitely get that out to everyone. And then just wanted to scroll down a little bit more. This is from a previous meeting, from the July 11th meeting. There was a request to move the air monitoring van to an area on the east side where there was almond harvesting going on, and wanted just to share that that van was moved on August 17th, and it will be there for roughly about a month, so another week or two. Just want to give that update to everyone on the CSC. And then let me keep on scrolling down. And then there was one last item in the completed that I wanted to just update everyone on, and that was the road and sidewalk bike lane improvement project plans that we discussed at the last meeting. Wanted to let everyone know that those project plans did go before our governing board and they were approved. That is it for my update on the action items. And if there's any questions, please go ahead and raise your hand and I'd be happy to try to answer your questions. I see maybe Linda.
What was the xeriscaping? Sorry.
I think that was just that was something where a resident wanted to see if there were funding options and opportunities for xeriscaping.
Oh, for the grass.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I remember now. Sorry, I just
No worries. Any other questions? I'm not sure. I don't think I see any other hands or anything. Gus, I see Gus Jr.'s hand.
How's it going? Good evening, everyone. I know in the most recent Valley Air District meeting, there was an approval to approve some potential spending. Just to recall, I know it hasn't been that long, but to recall what was approved there was to re-engage the lawnmower exchange program. Oh, right.
Maybe I'll just recap really quick. You're talking about the Air District Governing Board?
Yes.
Yes. So the approval was just everything that we talked about last meeting. So the approval for Shafter, primarily the main focus were those two paving projects, as well as a dial-a-ride.
Got it.
What you just said, though, is something we want to get feedback on today, because we have already heard exactly what you just said, and we actually want to see if folks want to move funding for that. So stay tuned if that's of interest.
Got it. Okay. But what was most recently approved was approval for the sidewalks, right?
Yes, the sidewalk and road paving and dial-a-ride.
Yes. Perfect.
Yes.
Gus, does anyone have any other questions?
I don't think I see any more hands, so I think that's it for action.
Go. Sounds great. Thanks so much, Song, for reviewing the action items for us. Okay, so next I'd like to introduce Bianca, who will be introducing the next item on the agenda, which is residential air filtration measure discussion. Bianca, please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I have to be back and forth, but so right now I'm presenting the home filtration for residential. This project was essentially for schools, but because of COVID, they received funding, and now this incentive was in the limbo. Now we as residents want to see it come down to the communities and making those changes to make it feasible for residents to take advantage for this incentive. So, and who do I pass it off to?
You can pass it off to me, Bianca. Thank you so much for introducing that item for us. So before we continue on with the presentation, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, please feel free to raise your hand or go ahead and use the chat to post them. Jessica Olson, would you like, oh, we have a question from Angie.
So is it going to be presentation first and questions and comments after, or lay my concerns out now?
I think it might help with some context, but I'm happy to take questions during the slide. So if something makes sense during the slide or doesn't make sense during the slide, maybe raise your hand. Does that help answer your question, Angie, or do you feel like it's?
Yeah, I'll wait till the presentation and you'll probably answer my question and we'll go from there.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I just so appreciate you all. And before I even start, 'cause then once I start presenting, you can't see faces and I love looking at reactions. As Bianca said, this has been a measure that you have all asked for in a lot of different ways. The first is that we are all very concerned, and you have all been very concerned about providing clean indoor air through having some sort of better air filtration. As Bianca said, and as you all supported, and I'll share sort of a summary of what we've all discussed already, we understand that the schools have other funding to do indoor air filtration. So you all felt it was important to still utilize the funding and use it for air filtration for residents. But in addition, some of you have also mentioned really the past couple of years, the interest in also making sure that other places like daycares and other types of care facilities have access to good filtration. So we have for you a set of slides that just sort of outlines what we've heard so far. We can make some decisions today. We can just use it as brainstorming. It's definitely something that we're open to having discussions with you all today. But in the slides that I'm about to share, it outlines a little bit of what we've done. I'm going to outline a little bit of what we've heard, and then we just have some questions for you all on how we want to proceed. So with that, please feel free, Vanessa or Bianca, to interrupt me because it is difficult once you share slides to see whose hands are raised or what questions there are. But yeah, so here are our updates. So really just this first slide is just to quickly summarize for you what you have already decided. So we had a school air filtration measure. It had 250,000. You wanted to move that 250 to a new measure. And we're calling it air purifier. And I'll explain kind of what our thoughts are here, but definitely get feedback from you all on what that measure looks like. That originally wasn't even in the SERP, so that went from 0 up to 250. This is what you have all asked for. We will, and this is just, the next slide is just a proposal. It's definitely just for discussion, and we can have more context a little bit in the slide to follow. But we also know that folks have asked for 250 kind of now that we've done a lot of our homework and know how many households are in the area and kind of what folks are looking for. We've also looked into, you have all asked us to remove the funding from locomotive switchers, and we've moved it to a bunch of funding already, but there's still funding left. And so there is a possibility, this is just a proposal right now, to move extra funding and make the total funding for the residential purifier program $1 million, which would allow us to spend it on about 5,000 households, which could cover almost every household in Shifter if we wanted. So that's just a little bit for discussion today, or we can make that decision today. Just a thought that we had that can use really a relatively small amount of the locomotive money and really make a big impact. And I'm already seeing some positive reactions, but we can take a moment to discuss it after the next slide. So that's just setting up kind of the potential for funding. So here on the left is in English and on the right is in Spanish, but I'm going to read it out loud. So hypothetically, we have 1 million. Right now we have 250. If the CSC supports it, we can add and make it a total of 1 million for up to 5,000 devices. The idea is that these would be free to residents. At least this is what we're thinking, but we're open to feedback. With the replacement filters, they would be easy to plug in, so folks wouldn't have to adjust their AC or their HVAC unit. And we would, of course, make it eligible for everyone in the 617 boundary. We would be looking, of course, this is all in conjunction working with CARB to make sure we can fund all of this, and our board to make sure we could approve all of this, but we'd be looking, of course, at residents. As you have all mentioned to us, daycare and private preschools maybe are on the eligibility list, or even adult care facilities was something that came up at our last meeting. Definitely open to feedback, and on the next slide I have a bunch of just questions for you, but I'm going to keep this open just for 1 second longer before I go to the next slide for you to take it in. And then the next slide really hits, I think, at what a lot of you have been saying, but the benefit of adding some funding is that we could target pretty much everyone in the boundary, and it could still be first come, first served if we wanted it to be, and really focus the outreach and prioritization on folks with asthma. Oh, yep.
So sorry to interrupt. I think Gustavo has a question.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Gustavo.
Gustavo, please go ahead.
About the air monitors, especially for the homes, it is possible, and I don't know if you did it before, but it is possible for maybe for you, the air district, to share a picture of the devices that will
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, maybe
good.
Yeah.
And I think it would be good information for now. Bianca have the our CRP vote, but for residents to have a good idea, just because in other projects we were told that some residents were going to get the air filtration, and I think at the end they were trying to do just a regular air filter for ACs, and so just to be sure that the residents know what they are going to get, maybe before making the final decision, will be great.
Such a good point. And Gustavo, I stopped sharing my screen so I can pull it up right now. I will share a picture. So those of you that recall, a couple of months, or maybe it was just last month, time is flying, we talked about this valley-wide project where we were sending purifiers. Hopefully a lot of you signed up for that. Hopefully you're getting them pretty soon. They should have shipped out pretty recently. It is going to be, we're hoping to do the same concept where we get those kind of, Gustavo's point, it is a true purifier that you plug into a room and make your room clean. I'm going to open up. This is just our pilot. Actually, I might not have Zong, while I'm talking, and maybe I'll keep going a little bit, and I'll take Michelle's question. Can you grab that flyer that we use to send out to folks? And then I'll have Zong share it on her screen and we can try to drop it in the chat too. Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, I'll back to your, I think it was slide number 2 at the top. I think we're missing a 0. Is that correct?
Oh, it's totally missing a 0. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I was like, well, I'm not understanding that. So the funding would be 1 million.
Correct.
And coming from 2 different sources.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, exactly. Thank you for helping clarify. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you. That was so, yeah. So the funding would be 1 million as it's here, and then it's just wrong on the other slide. Right now, you already have 250 because that was already decided by you all. So we're open to the concept of adding this. And like I said, the idea here is that we could then just make it first come, first serve, get as many people as possible in the program. We know that Shafter is itself part of that disadvantaged community. So we already know that everyone would be eligible in terms of, being in an impacted area. It would also
go ahead. Sorry, Bianca had a question, or she had her hand raised.
Yeah, no, I see that. Thank you.
I don't know if Jessica wants to answer the question, but go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna finish off by saying the idea again with the moving the funding is that some of these prioritization can really be about outreach prioritization and not necessarily making the program burdensome by having to prove all of these things that you qualify. We would just say everyone in the boundary qualifies. We would work with you all, especially the CBOs, to do targeted outreach to folks that maybe we know have asthma or we know have small children. But the reality is we make this program as accessible as possible, perhaps even have events like we did with the lawnmowers where you also get an air purifier. So we want to make this really easy. Okay, yeah.
Yes, that was my question. Now that it's going to be open to a lot of the public, can there be an event for them? And also, can we prioritize also for the residents that have been participating in the CSC? Because as I was sharing earlier, they're finally seeing the fruits of the looms, and if it's possible, they could at least see the application or send it out via hard copy, or if we do an event, can they get an invitation so they can pass it out to their family, friends, and things like that? So it was just an idea that I do have, because I know I seeing these numbers, I didn't see it I didn't see the presentation. I was actually here prepping, and now seeing those numbers incrementing, it's like, okay, now there's other, you see that there's some changes happening for residents in part of the air contamination here in the area. So really, really appreciate all that help.
Yes, of course. And Bianca, I think answer is yes to everything you asked. I think in whatever capacity we want to get folks, we definitely think you all would be the first to know that the program is open. We would help you all sign up for it. We can all talk together once we'd have to work with CARB to get a project plan, and hearing all of this support. And I know Brian will agree, all of this support and interest helps CARB get that project plan across the finish line. That's one of their main questions to us is, hey, is this something the CSC wants? Okay, yeah, this is definitely something you have all been asking for. And then to your point, Bianca, we could probably do a mail to the house model like we're doing currently, if that works for folks. We can probably also do an event if that works for different folks, just to make sure everyone has access to it in the best way possible. All of that is a possibility. Hey, Linda.
I just had a question. I think it's great for the folks with residential needs. I don't want to forget the seniors too.
Yes.
I know they don't always have social media, but one I did want to bring up is we do have a senior center here. It's called the Walker Senior Center, and they do exercises and stuff in there.
Yeah.
I did talk to them, and they could really use something updated over there. So as we're putting together these different flyers to go out, there's something that we can give places like that, places like the youth center, they have an area for exercise as well. And they also have children in there for after care. And then, we do have some like little preschools and things around. So I didn't want to forget about them.
Yes.
And just a way that we can reach out to them too.
Yes, I think what you just said, Linda, and it was nice to hear Walker Senior Center and write that down. I think what we'll also do throughout this as we get going is we'll hear from you all directly, like the exact places we would do this. And I'm wondering, maybe I'll talk with the team, but certainly since this is really targeting residents, to your point, and adult care or senior care and daycare, there might be a couple of different sort of like different ways we present it to CARB just on all the different possibilities. And we'll release that and send it out to all of you so you can kind of see how that shakes out as well.
When you're presenting this to CARB, would you need letters of support from these different areas? Does that help? No.
I don't necessarily think so. I don't know if
like that they need it.
Brian, or I don't think letters of support. I do know that they always ask what is the general support. So Brian, generally what we've done, I don't know if you have any different insight, we've linked to literally this video recording, or we've said something like, okay, the CSC, and maybe I can ask today if there's any objections to this. And if there's none, we would say the CSC, supported with no objections this proposal to move forward.
Yeah, we would basically cite this. We basically cite this meeting in the plan itself as approval from the committee. Basically.
For sure, and that's kind of why I'm here. You all are busy enough. You don't have to be writing other letters of support. So
yeah,
I've already heard some pretty strong support for it. So that's no problem.
Okay, I just want to check. Thank you.
That's super. I appreciate it though, and we'll definitely, if we do need letters of support for anything, we know where to come for sure. Angie.
Hi. Okay, so since this is partly of support, I work at the youth center. I manage the youth center for Community Action Partnership, and I know for a fact that our system was installed originally in 2003, and the mechanical system does not have that filtration system attached, and so we're at limited capacity of what type of air filtration be installed. So we definitely need the upgrade, and we also have the Head Start next door, the early Head Start. And we have a Head Start across from Grow Academy, which that facility is rented. But I'm sure the owner of that property would be willing to help out. So those are 3 facilities that I know of personally that could use the upgrade.
That's so helpful. And what I'll say, just to kind of help clarify, is right now the thought, and we're seeing this, we have something called the Clean Air Centers program, which is sort of like a bigger scale of this. And I think, again, it's hard because sharing my screen, but the flyer that you see that Zong put in, those are those small residential units. We also have big plugins for folks like the youth center and the Head Start Center, again, so they don't have to go through and do a big HVAC upgrade, because that is what's kind of bogging down this process, is everyone assessing their HVAC, seeing what we can pay for. This literally, we deliver a big unit that's capable of filtering the whole room, and you plug it in, and then you just change the filters on that air filtration unit. And they'd be big enough in the youth center case, or the Head Start case, or maybe even the adult care facility case, that it's not for a small residential room, it could be bigger, is maybe the thought of how we would write this project plan. Go ahead, Linda.
Sorry, I forgot to mention earlier. So the pilot program that you did, I was directing people to it and they ran out.
We did.
So do we know how many actually got to go to Shafter? Do you know? I mean, just so we know the need.
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me. We can definitely take a look. I mean, Kern was taken up pretty quickly. And even though we had a lot available in Kern, we had a lot of folks in Arvin Lamont take advantage, a lot of folks in Bakersfield. So we'll definitely get those numbers, but I'd venture a guess it was less than 50. So there's still a significant need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, so I heard once there's about 5,000 houses. I think that's when we were talking about trash collection. There's about 5,000 houses in the city of Shafter, and we all are on the city water, and so something could be slipped into our city bill to get that. But how do we reach the people who are out on domestic pumps and septics or something they don't get? How do you reach them who are out there actually? I mean, I live on the edge of town, so I get some dust, but how do you reach the people who are out there where, how do we reach those people?
That's a great question. Yeah, go ahead.
And, it would be nice to know how much these little air purifier systems work, so we know, our cost, so we can look at how many, what does 5,000 of those mean out of the budget? And the other thing is, yeah, I got mine today. So just FYI, I did. I was one of the 50, which I feel, guilty because, I do live in town and stuff. And I had no idea that it was so limited. And so, but it came in the mail actually this weekend, I think. And, but I'm concerned about reaching people who are out in the farming community that need the opportunity to do this for them.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. So I think these are all great questions. I mean, right now, at an average of 200, which we know some are more, some are less, $200 for 5,000 is $1 million. But it will be give and take. Of course, there's going to be folks that aren't interested in participating. Of course, we know we're going to pay a little bit more for the bigger units for some of the facilities. We can always open it up and see how far that $1 million go. And if for some reason we need to add more, we can add more if there is room within the SERP to add more. So I think that's a great question. I think you bring up some really good points about outreach, and something that we can all keep in mind as we move this forward of how do we reach the folks that really probably need it the most. And I think that's where a lot of our community partners are going to be helpful. We do have mini grants, which is where we could literally give any of our community partners funding to do some of this door-to-door work. We can give you, we've signed folks up in Stockton. One of the community groups got $2,000 from us to pay people to go door-to-door and hand out flyers and ask questions. So these are the types of things we'd be super happy to partner with folks on too. Go ahead, Michelle.
Also, oh gosh, I hope I remember. Locomotive. So when can we say, yeah, move that money out of that locomotive category and slap it in the other one?
So I'm pretty certain we can do that right now. So you have all decided separately to defund or not pursue because we didn't find any partners for locomotive switchers. So we're almost using that funding as a place for us to keep shifting around if needed, because you all were supportive of that a couple of meetings ago. So with that, I'm actually happy to ask, I mean, if it's okay, and maybe Bianca, maybe I'll ask you this question. Bianca, do you think we're at a place with kind of the comments you've heard to ask folks right now if they'd be supportive of moving funding? Is that something that we can get support from the committee right now? Would you be comfortable with that?
I'm actually talking to them at the moment, and they said it was okay to move those locomotive fundings to the filtration because it would benefit more community than less community than when we had 250,000. So having this bigger amount does help more residents that have been affected and were not able to participate in the funding that the Air District did a couple of weeks ago. So
maybe then with that support from our co-host, Vanessa, if we're okay, maybe just asking if there's any, or you can help us keep track, if there are any objections to us shifting the 750K to make it a total of 1 million. Maybe we can pause for a minute, and if there's no objections, we can just consider it like by consensus that the committee supports this.
Sure, that sounds great, Jessica. So if anyone is opposed to shifting $750,000 from the locomotives, please raise your hand, or you can add a comment in the chat if you're opposed to this.
No opposition.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat, and I'm not seeing any hands raised
right
now.
I'll just so that folks know what the next steps are and aren't left in the dark. With this general support from the CSC, we will refine our project plan, send it all, of course, to you and to CARB so that they can start their process. And of course, if in the meantime, we also have to take something to our board. So there definitely is a couple of steps in the process. But we really hope by within the next several months, we can get this approved, get this launched, and then really maybe in the meantime already start to think of an outreach plan. So we'll definitely keep that in mind. I've already written down some great ideas on who to reach out to. And so just thank you all for that. That was a really big step, I think, to Bianca's point in summarizing some of what the residents have said tonight, that really goes further for this measure and helps as many residents as possible.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Before we continue, I'd like to elevate a few comments that were made in the chat. So in addition to the Clean Air Room pilot program flyers that Zong posted in the chat, I also want to elevate Brian Moore's comment. Yes, through the community identified projects pathway and with CSC support, residential air filtration projects are definitely doable. And I'd also like to highlight Zong's comment at the end where she provides a link where you can find additional information on the Clean Air Center's pilot program, if anyone is interested. Also, before continuing, I'd like to return to Gustavo, who asked the question earlier, and I just want to make sure that his question was answered. Gustavo, do you have any additional questions about the air filters that you asked about before?
No, it looks like I think all the steering committee members know about it, so I think that should be okay.
I will just and sorry, Gustavo, he's right though. I didn't fully pull it up on the screen. I said one thing, and I did just to finish. What Zong put in the chat here are the pictures, just so you all know what they look like. These are the examples of the purifiers. You plug them in. There's little filters that you pop in and out. And so that's an example of what the residential units look like. So just to help answer that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica, for posting pictures of those air filters. Does anyone have any additional questions or comments on this action item before we continue? Yes, Grecia, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. This is the first time at this meeting with CRP. I just had a really quick question about the filters itself on the flyer. I don't know if you're going to be doing it the same as the flyer, but it said one filter would be provided, or like replacement filters. Would information about how many replacement filters be given out to residents, and the cost of additional filters that residents would need to purchase after the initial filters that were given would be needed to be replaced by, like, just more info on that? Would that be something that would be given as well?
Certainly, and I think not only just info on it, but maybe even a link to where folks can order more filters just to help expedite that process for them. And I'm writing down to just a note to your point as we refine this and once we launch the program to provide more feedback and more explanation as to like the replacement filters and kind of what that process looks like, how often you have to replace, all of that good stuff.
Thanks, Gracia, for your question. Does anyone have any additional clarifying questions about the air filters or anything else that was discussed previously in the presentation? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised or anything in the chat, so we can continue on to the next agenda item, which is a discussion regarding moving funds to support existing SARP measures. So before we continue, I'd like to remind you all that an important part of AB617 work is implementing the local SERP, or Community Emissions Reduction Program. We will now be transitioning into a discussion and a potential vote where we'll be discussing and voting on moving funds to support existing SERP measures, specifically the residential lawn and garden equipment and residential fireplace replacement measures. Your feedback is very important in deciding how to move funding, so please feel free to share any questions, comments, or concerns you have in the chat or by raising your hand. Jessica Olson, would you like to take questions throughout your presentation or after?
Throughout. I love stopping and answering questions. And actually tonight, we have sort of 3 different pieces to talk about. So I'll kind of pause and provide context if folks don't want to interrupt. I'll leave space.
Perfect. Thank you, Jessica. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Great. Okay. So I have the first, so basically, as I think we're kind of in a routine now, as you've seen the last like 3 or 4 meetings, we've had a really similar set of slides for you where we describe the context of where we're at with certain measures. And then we provide a little bit of space for discussion on what to do. And then we've been coming back subsequent meetings and helping or having you help us make decisions and support some of the shifting of funding based on what we've heard the previous meeting or maybe previous several meetings. Excuse me. So one of those, and it's actually what Gus Jr. mentioned at the top of the meeting, that we've heard is residential lawn and garden. And just to provide a little bit of context, so I'm going to share my slides here really quickly. And I might go a little bit backwards in this slide and just share a little context here. But I'll go back and share kind of that same table I shared about shifting funding. So someone asked the last meeting, I believe it was Bianca, are we going to have another lawn and garden event? So at first glance, we said, oh yeah, we have enough funding for 100. But we were looking back at it, we've actually have enough funding for about 50. We've spent about 75% of the funding. The current funding allocation in the SERP total is 100,000. And the funding remains for about 50 units, which, just so you all know, we went through about 50 units in the first like 20 minutes, it felt like, at that Shafter event. So there was a lot of interest in that residential lawn and garden event at our last meeting. So we've come to you today with a question very, very similar to the one we just did about moving funding from the locomotive measure. This is our only other shifting tonight. The other 2 updates are about something you've already voted on. It's just updates. But it would be to add another 100,000 to this, which would allow us to fund 200 more units and to hold a second event that still hits at the, we would work with you all, maybe do an event in a similar fashion, maybe at the same place. We can work out the details as it gets closer. But we felt from all of the asking at the last couple of meetings that you all were interested in adding funding and wanted to just see if that was still the case. So I'll go back just really quickly to share with you, just so we can illustrate. We've already moved funds from locomotive switchers and from school air filtration into this one. We're right now voting to move funds for residential lawn and garden. And then the next two slides will share with you the other two places you've already moved funds to.
Sorry, Jessica, I think Annabelle has a question.
Okay, maybe I'll just quickly finish my sentence and then I was just gonna say, this total amount of funding right here, just to help clarify, is reflective of if we move this funding. So I just wanted that to be clear. And go ahead, Annabelle.
Sí, solamente aclarar que no muevan ahorita ya más fondos. Primero terminamos con los filtros o con lo que se empezó. Entonces vemos balances después y lo podemos agregar en otras necesidades. Porque si no se termina una cosa y vamos a estar sacando fondos, al rato ni se va a terminar una cosa ni se va a acabar el dinero de otra. Mejor agarrar eso que está ahorita, lo del millón o eso para los filtros, terminamos con eso y empezamos otro proyecto para ir parte por parte, porque si no, de otra manera, nos vamos, lo poco que nos dieron a nosotros, se va a ir en otras cosas que a lo mejor ni siquiera lo pensamos bien. Esa es mi opinión y creo que de aquí también de los de Chapter, del comité.
Espérate. Y soy Ana Valle, disculpen, yo pienso que como dice Anabel, ya que está el proyecto para los filtros o los purificadores de aire para las casas, son más importantes ahorita que la cortadora de zacate por lo mismo de que purifican el aire. Y es más recomendable que todas las casas tengan un purificador de aire. Y aunque crezca el pasto en nuestras casas, no importa porque el aire es lo más importante. Y si en caso el dinero no alcanzara, es mejor pasar dinero en el futuro en vez de comprar más máquinas para cortar zacate. Entonces no queremos mover dinero de lo que hay, dejémoslo así sin mover. Hagamos el proyecto de purificadores de aire. Cuando se termine el proyecto, alcanzaron los aires, se repartieron los aires, y todas las personas tenemos, entonces miramos dónde mover más dinero para que sigamos un proyecto que sigue el siguiente proyecto, terminemos uno primero. La necesidad ahorita, el aire está muy malo acá, se siente muy malo. Yo pienso que tenemos tanto tiempo pensando en los purificadores que a este tiempo ya pienso que los purificadores ya deberían de estar en casa de cada persona porque el aire está muy malo, como ustedes sabrán. Así es que yo pienso que dejemos ese dinero ahí donde está, hagamos una cosa primero y después la que sigue. Gracias.
And maybe I can help clarify. I don't know if this is exactly what both the residents who just spoke were thinking. This would be at the same time, this does not take any money away from the air purifiers we just voted on. This is in addition to move the funding. We have a bunch of funding that's not being used for locomotive switchers. So we could also at the same time do air purifiers and lawn and garden at the same time. It's different groups at the district working on it. And it's simultaneously cleaning the air and adding funding. So I just wanted to be clear, this is not coming from the same bucket as air purifiers. We have solidly put $1 million and we are not changing that for air purification. This is just to separately add more money. But I do hear you and I totally understand. And we're open to yes or no. I just wanted to clarify in case that was part of the confusion. Go ahead, Bianca.
Sorry, I do have a question because right now we were commenting with the ladies that right now their water has been kind of diminishing by the water district, so their grass is not growing as much as it should. What Anna was mentioning was that we should be finishing one project beforehand. Because what if there's more necessities in the filtration because of PM 2.5 growing at this moment? Those are the changes that they want to see. They want to hold on in approving changes on the locomotives until they see some action happening with the filtration. If they see a need, a higher need, then those fundings could go directly to filtration. That's what she was mentioning. Instead of adding it to the lawnmower, bring it back to the community if they want to see more filtration. Like I can't remember who was mentioning about using the youth group and the senior citizens. Those are going to need bigger units of filtration, and here in the community they're going to get smaller. So they're going to run on the budget really fast because of bigger units. So they would want them to get a priority because some of them are children and also the senior citizens. So they would want to hold on and say until to do the approval for those changes.
Awesome, great. And just to, I hear you, I just want to help continue to clarify. I think what Bianca is saying is it's not necessarily that this would come from air filtration, but it would come from that bucket that we used to fund air filtration. And we want to make sure that we leave some money in there. I will say that as of right now, even if we moved this 100, there would still be over $2 million left if we needed to add some more to air filtration. I just want us to make sure that we keep in mind that there is a time limit. We have a couple of years left on the CERP. And so we don't necessarily, although I hear you, we don't necessarily want to wait until we're done with a project to start another project. But maybe what I'm hearing right now is we want to pause this decision right now, maybe wait until we launch the air filtration project, and then we can maybe restart this discussion maybe in 6 months' time and see how that works. I also hear you, and we're feeling the same thing across the whole valley, that the drought is maybe making lawn and garden equipment not as used. So that totally makes sense, I think, to me. Go ahead, Michelle.
When we did the event down at Floyd's, did we run out of lawnmowers to give out that day? We did.
We did.
And how early in that event did we run out? Like in the first, like you said, 15 minutes?
So we had the full amount, and we put people on a wait list even before the event started, a couple weeks out from the event. So definitely there was an interest. But I don't want to kind of hearing already a good amount of questioning and pause. There's certainly, in lawnmower terms, compared to other big types of vehicles, this is a relatively quick project to launch when we are ready to launch it. And so what I can say is that if we want to pause this decision until we launch the air filtration devices, we can maybe re-discuss this later down the line when folks maybe have kind of capacity to think about lawn and garden, and maybe focus on some of our bigger ticket items is what I've heard so far.
I agree with Annabelle and what you just said, but I don't want to put it back 6 months. That's too far. I think if we could put it, in 3 months, so we can have a little bit of grasp of the, of the air filtration that we're, kind of working on. And so that when we're ready, 6 months, that's a long time in terms of getting things done. And so I think 3 months, we should look at it again and make sure we're still on track where we want to be.
Yeah. Let's make that an action item to at least bring it up in an agenda setting meeting in 3 months, see if folks want to put it back on the agenda. Any other thoughts on lawn and garden, knowing that we're going to pause, give ourselves a little bit of a chance to think about it at a future meeting? I just want to reflect, I just really appreciate everyone being so thoughtful, and we've made some decisions. And I think even decisions about pausing are big decisions, because it allows us, like Annabelle and Ana Valle and Bianca all three just mentioned, to focus on the big thing that we just decided on today. So I really appreciate that. If there's nothing else about this particular measure, I'm going to share 1 or 2 more quick slides. Ignore this one because we decided not to do it, which is totally okay. We're going to discuss it at some future meeting. 2 meetings ago, you all decided to help support moving funding $1 million to vegetative barriers and $200,000 to fireplace replacement. And so I'm just going to give a little bit of an update on both of those. So the first is vegetative barriers. Again, I'm not sure. I think these just got cut off maybe. This is $1 million, not $1,000. But we supported moving, or you all supported moving funding to increase the incentives amount. And next week, we have a subcommittee to talk about vegetative barriers. We're going to go over what a vegetative barrier is. We're going to talk a little bit about what's called a request for proposals, or RFP. And we're going to talk a little bit about the process we've already gone through for urban greening, and maybe some of the, totally not a pun, but some of the barriers we're running into and finding project partners. And that will help us collectively as a subcommittee, I think, dive deeper into this project. Knowing that there's this meeting, is there any question about the upcoming meeting or anything related to vegetative barriers? Awesome. Well, certainly please bring your questions to that meeting or even ahead of the meeting. Sometimes that helps us prep for the meeting, is knowing what the questions are ahead of time, but our team looks forward to talking with you very closely about those. And then oh, sorry, go ahead, Linda.
I just had a question on the vegetative barrier, because we have the urban greening money too.
Yes.
I know there's been talks about where we might put these. Are you going to have some kind of guidelines, like how do we approach a farmer since it's their field? You know, I had brought up Laredo Highway, you know, having a lot of dust, and Highway 43 to the point where I've had to stop because it was too dangerous to go through. So is that going to be something addressed during that meeting?
We can certainly talk about it. So basically what we've done, and I think to your point, we'll make sure that the subcommittee, it might have to be a standing committee that meets occasionally to talk about these outreach type things, because we're going out for someone, like a request for someone to be the main person or the main entity that oversees the planting of the projects and work closely with them on that, you know, that approach, especially if they're very familiar with planting trees or working with farmers. That might help them score higher in that process with us. And we would use the subcommittee, exactly to your point, to get that feedback. And I think now hearing that, I'm noting down those can be some of the questions we ask you all as a subcommittee of, like, what are the other things you're foreseeing? To your point, we definitely already have Laredo and 43 as our main, as some of the main places that we're talking about. Golden Oak, you know, all the different places that you have all already identified for us are already on our list. But part of the subcommittee, I think, can be identifying and outreaching as we move forward with the process. So,
okay, so the person we select in an RFP is going to go and propose this to the quote farmer. That's how that works.
It could be. That's kind of how it depends on who that person is. Or we could be it could kind of be in conjunction with maybe the CSC. That's definitely something that the subcommittee will have all of the incentive folks that are familiar with this project all at this meeting to help answer all these questions.
So one thing, like, are we also going to, I don't want to get off topic, but as far as the RFP goes, I know that there was one for urban greening. I had heard that there was, you know, something in there about them taking care of the trees for 10 years. Can we also have input on the RFP?
Yeah, we'll go over.
And it would change the budget.
Yeah, we'll go over some of the RFP language, I think. And actually, I'm just noting this for our team. We'll make sure to go over some of the RFP language. We have it both in English and in Spanish, so we'll share it with everyone ahead of time, or at least part of that RFP. And yes, we'd love that input. That's exactly what we want this meeting to be about.
And we're going to work on how we're going to deal with this with water shortages.
That is the issue, right? And so, I mean, you know, we are here to help support the idea from the CSC to plant vegetative barriers. But we understand, I mean, this is hopefully someone applies and someone is able to take care of it, right? At the same time, if they're having to not take care of the other types of trees, This is, at the end of the day, a voluntary incentive program. So I think working really closely with whoever gets the RFP, with you all on getting a project partner is going to be really key.
And can we also combine things? I'm sorry, this is my last thing. So I'm super excited about the sidewalks going up 43, just safety wise, everything. Can some of that money help with the homes, since their windows and ACs are just, 20 feet off of a 4-lane road? I mean, can we combine funding like that where it could, I know they're getting money for the bike lane and the sidewalks, but can some of this go towards that?
The city and the county are welcome to apply, certainly, and be a part of that, right? So, or Caltrans, whoever owns that piece of land, or they can just leverage their project by partnering with some other partner. Certainly, all of that is available to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle had her hand raised. Do you still have a question or a comment, Michelle?
No, Linda asked the question. The water issue is going to be a struggle when you're looking to, income producing versus a vegetarian barrier. That will be something that'll have to be looked at. So Linda asked that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we look forward to the subcommittee meeting. It sounds like we already have some great discussion. And like I said, we'll be sending something out about that closer to the end of this week. It is next Thursday at 3 p.m. on Zoom. We'll record and post it as always. So if you can't make it, you can watch the recording and take a look at some of our notes and next steps. I'm going to move on. Just a quick update about the other measure that you all moved funding to, just to kind of be transparent about where everything's at in the process. You all supported increasing the incentives for residents. We found, just as a quick recap, that $3,000 was not enough for a fireplace. You all increased the funding, so now it's $800,000. It was $600,000 to make sure we could pay and try to cover the full cost of replacing a fireplace for residents. We're so excited. We're actually updating the entire Valley program at the board meeting on Thursday, including the Shafter CSC. So this will be approved on Thursday, and we can immediately change our flyers and get the program updated and get people into cleaner devices before this wood burning season. I know it's really hard to think about heating your home right now because it is hot and gross and muggy. But believe it or not, it's September. It's a month or really 2 months away from cooler weather, from cold weather, and from that fireplace season that folks tend to burn wood. So we hope that these changes that we, of course, want approval from our board on Thursday can allow more residents to not have to pay out of pocket to get to a cleaner device. We are increasing the incentive for the natural gas and the electric options, as we discussed at the last meeting where you all supported this. So we're really excited about this. And again, as with every meeting, we'll make the changes on our website, and then we'll send all of the information, including outreach material, to you all to help get folks in this program. That's all I have in terms of the funding shifts that we've done recently and any updates I had on them. Are there any questions in particular about the ones that I've just shared? Awesome. Well, I've shared my next steps. I know Harder and Company is really good about keeping us accountable and writing the next steps. We do need approval not from you all. We got the approval from you all a couple of meetings ago. You all voted yes on supporting this. So we just need approval from our board now. I was just giving an update. So yes, once the board approves though, we're good. So we're really excited about that. Sorry, I'm answering the question that Bianca just posted in the chat. All right, well, you guys, I just so appreciate all of the engagement. It was really nice to, I think, not only just make a bunch of decisions, but have a lot of good feedback and support for the next steps on several measures. We definitely look forward to our agenda setting meeting where we can start to pick out a few different measures and maybe do this deep dive every time and touch base every time. So thank you all, and thanks for Bianca for prepping for the last couple of slides that we shared.
Great, thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Bianca. If no one has any questions or comments, we can continue on to standing updates. So we will now open the floor for standing updates. Today, we will hear about updates from community air monitoring, DPR, CARB, and other agencies. So let's start off by hearing about progress from community air monitoring.
All right, good evening, everyone. Just wanted to update you all that, so we've had our air monitoring van at La Colonia for almost a month now, I think, and we're planning to take it, we'll remove it this week, by the end of this week. So that'll be close to a month, and we are going to be downloading all that data, taking a look at it, and comparing it to the other sites, and also reviewing the our cameras that we have on the van to try and help identify potential causes of any type of spikes for that time period. So just, I'm not sure if Dora is here today, but I just wanted to really express my gratitude for her flexibility on that and willingness. And she has been super supportive of all of this, this whole effort. So once we get that completed and with the data fully analyzed, we'll definitely share it with you all. All right, sounds good. Thanks, Jess. Looks like Gus, you have a question?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that update, Shai. The monitor that's currently at La Colonia Mexicana, this is a mobile air monitor, the van?
Yeah, so we placed a van over there, yep.
And that's the multi-sensor, like there's multiple sensors. Can you just quickly, it's PM 2.5, and can you describe what other sensors are on the mobile van?
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of sensors, but for this particular case, and as you guys all know, the heat has really been rough. So we decided that, we couldn't turn all the sensors on, but we knew that, we originally wanted PM2.5 there, and we want to make sure that we have that operating for the entire month. So even with the electrical that connected to Dora's house, along with that, we had a hard time keeping up. So the only the instrument that we had going continuously is the PM2.5.
Okay, and I guess just preliminary data visualization. Was this in line to like the other stationary PM 2.5 monitors, like at the DMV and others? Like, is it pretty much, at least from a preliminary perspective, does it look pretty much the same? Is it drastically different?
Yeah, so yeah, it's somewhat the same. I mean, I'll let you guys know on what we saw that interested us, and we definitely still need to dig into this a little further. But we did see some like early morning spikes, and we were wondering like, hey, is this something that we're seeing at nearby sites like Sequoia or at Grimway? And we looked at it, and they had their spikes, but they were off a little bit. So it could be that there's some travel of it, and that's why there's a difference on that. But definitely, we still need to spend some more time to analyze that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I asked because at one point, our organization had like a multi-sensor air monitoring network in Arvin, and it was very granular. And yeah, from each, I mean, really each neighborhood had its own like characteristics of peaks and whatnot. So time frame, when will the Colonia Mexicana information be ready?
I'm thinking maybe in the next couple of weeks we should be able to get something up and ready, more information in our next meeting to show to you guys.
Right on.
That was going to be my question, Gus. I was going to ask the timeline to Chai, and once we do Chai, I'm wondering too if we can start putting that information from the van in the weekly air monitoring updates, so we can track with the other sensors, because I know that that's an update that we send out to folks and that is posted, and I think that would be a nice way to answer Gus's question as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky in that the weekly is kind of a week to week, and so once we're done with this, we'll take it out, and so we won't have the van there anymore.
Sorry, I meant just for the weeks that it's up.
You mean go back and update the previous week? Oh,
yeah,
gotcha,
so folks
gotcha.
can like
Yeah,
kind of take, yes, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, yes, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So, go ahead.
Yeah, Sergio. And I think so. It's like a question for you all and DPR, the Department of Pesticide Regulation. I know like this was in the SERP, there was like multiple layers to like the pesticide work, right? The pesticide notification being one of them, right? But then there was other conversations around like alternative pest management practices and different potential mitigations and even potential additional air monitoring for pesticides. Do we have an update on how that work has evolved and how it's doing?
I wonder if I know that two of our DPR colleagues are here, and I wonder if just hearing that we can request a detailed update at our follow-up meeting to all of your points. I know that we've shared just in more detail because it's been agendized in Arvin, for example, some of the recent efforts on sustainable pest management, all of those things. I wonder if that's something that we can ask Maziar maybe for the following meeting.
Sure. Yes, we can talk about all of these questions. So what it helped me is if I have all of these questions, guys, if you can repeat it, I can write them all, and then in the next meeting we can have an update about those. So would you be able to repeat them all? Okay.
One of the questions was like in tied into Chaya's work, which we're grateful, is the additional air monitoring. So I know in one of the in few of the conversations we were talking about the potential for additional pesticide air monitoring in the 6 or 7 mile radius, I forget, of Shafter, which is a 617 boundary. There was also conversations of a handful of pesticide mitigation efforts, pilots that included like potentially around particularly 1,3-D and how it's injected to have more soil that is more moist or wet than usual, potentially deeper injections. I think tarping was even part of the conversation. And so kind of how those pilots are going. And then the third one was on the alternatives to pesticide management practices.
Sure. I can say a piece of here and there, but I would rather have them all combined and come back in the next meeting and talk about this in detail.
Yeah, that works.
Sure thing. Sure.
All right, thanks.
Great. Thank you, Chai, for the update, and thank you, Gus, for your questions. We can continue on to the next update, which will be our DPR update. As you all know, regulating the amount of pesticides in the air is very important to maintaining community air quality. Today, Maziar will provide us with any general updates that they have prepared. Please
Good
go ahead.
afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. We don't have any specific update related to the Shafter. The only thing is that we are moving forward with the 1,3-D regulation. As was asked, we have a few questions that I believe we're going to work on it and come back in the next meeting and talk about these questions and whether we have any update on those questions in the next meeting. If there's any question or any other thing that I can answer or basically take home and come back with answer, I would be happy to hear them.
Awesome. Thank you, Maziar. Up next, we have CARB. CARB is responsible for the implementation of AB617. I'd now like to invite CARB to share their work or share about their work involved in AB617. Are there any updates that you would like to share this evening, Brian?
Thanks, Vanessa. I just have one for the group. I actually just found out this morning that the California Department of Conservation, especially with CalGEM, so the Geologic Energy Management, is having their first methane task force public meeting coming up on September 15th. So I know that's not much notice. They haven't, I don't know why their outreach didn't reach us until now. So I'm putting the information in the chat, and anybody can also, I'll put my email too. So if anybody's having trouble joining that or wants to know more about that, I figure it may interest people around Shafter for sure. So it's, again, that's the first public meeting of a new methane task force the state is putting together, and it's September 15th, virtual. And I have the registration link in the chat. And yeah, that's all I have.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. So yes, would like to elevate the links that he just posted on the first methane task force public meeting. I'd also like to elevate a link that Linda posted. It says, so it's for Kern Community College District, which created an introduction to jobs in electric transportation, specifically vehicles and infrastructure course. This training that culminates with a week-long apprenticeship readiness training at the Electrical Apprenticeship Training Center. I can also share a flyer if you contact me at lurata@kernCog.org. And Linda has also shared a link with more information on that. Thank you so much, Brian, for that update. Next up, we have Caltrans. Marcus, do you have anything to share with us today?
No updates. Thank you, though.
Awesome, no problem. Thank you. And before we continue, are there any other community updates that our CSC should be aware of? Or does anyone want to provide information on events happening within the AB617 boundary? You can do so at this time if you have any updates. Oh, Jessica.
Mine's not as cool as an event, but several of you have already done so, so thank you. But we have our sort of membership, I'll just call it more like a contact information and update form. We called it a renewal form, and you might have already gotten a call from us, or you will this week if we haven't gotten it from you. We definitely don't need you to fill it out on your own if you are unable or uncomfortable doing so. We'll just give you a call and verify that your information is the same. We've had some folks that have moved, or some folks that have retired, or even on the organization side, some folks change different roles. And so we want to make sure that our roster is as up to date as possible. And so doing this will help us. So you'll probably hear from our team this week if you haven't filled it out. I know that Bianca was also helping us out, and I think Gus as well. And you can also reach out to one of them and they can help you. Otherwise, we'll either directly reach out to you or even have Bianca reach out to you if we don't hear back, just so that we can make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row. It does have a couple of extra questions about whether or not you want things mailed to your house, or whether you want a text message to notify you about things. So there are a few little questions we're going to ask you as well. So I appreciate your support, and thanks to those that have already filled it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Also would like to elevate, so I think I forgot to add Brian's final comment. Says, feel free to email me with any CARB related questions, and he's provided his email address. It is brian.moore@arb.ca.gov. And Alexa has also posted an update of her own. It says Shafter Library and Learning Center will have a bike rodeo hosted by Bike Bakersfield on Thursday, September 15th from 4 to 7 p.m. before I continue, I'd also like to pass the mic on to Dr. Amy Ramos, who has an update of her own. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you, Vanessa. So along the similar lines as what Jessica from the Air District reported, you may have received several calls or emails from our team who is trying to make sure that you are receiving your checks if you are part of the stipend program. And I know several of you have called us and let us know that you have moved, or we've tried to call you, but your phone is disconnected. So just want to highlight the importance of sending back your forms to the Air District so that we can make sure that we have your most updated contract information. And lastly, if you are not participating in the direct deposit process, I highly recommend that you do that. The holidays are around the corner, and we know that our U.S. Postal Service gets slowed down during the holidays. So we do expect that checks that go out in November and December and January will very likely be slowed down, and participating in the direct deposit process will help ensure that you get your checks as soon as we process them. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to anyone from our team. We have Vanessa and Jessica on our end. And of course, some of you have already met some of our administrative team, so feel free to reach out to them as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy, for that update. I have one more. So I believe Zong would like to talk to you about the membership renewal form. So Zong, whenever you're ready.
No worries. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I just wanted to touch on the renewal form, but Jessica already did an awesome job. So sorry. I'm good. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Zong. Sorry about that. I assumed that there was more to add on. Well, that's all the updates that we have for today. Does anyone have any additional community updates that they'd like to share, or have any questions or comments about any of the updates that they've just heard? Linda, go ahead.
I just had a question on where we were at with the urban greening. And then I know the sidewalks got approved at Valley Air, but so it went to CARB. So I was just kind of wondering how soon we would kind of see that progress happen in Shafter.
Go ahead, Erin.
No, can you restate the question? I think I missed the first part. It was urban greening, right?
Urban greening and
so
sidewalks.
There was an RFP that was due, I felt like, a little while ago. So I was just wondering what the outcome of that is. Do we need to redo it? Did people apply?
Well, yeah. Nobody applied to the RFP. And so we have to kind of revamp that. And one of the main issues with that was, to be honest with you, was the fact that the organization that wanted to apply, obviously I think we knew who it was, could not front any of the money. Mm-hmm. And so now we're trying to figure out a way how we could give them seed money to kind of start and have a rotating pot of funds. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of tough because the issue is the money we get it kind of given to us in advance, and by signing that agreement, we have to agree not to give that money in advance to anybody else. So it's kind of this, we're in this kind of boat here. So we're trying to figure out a way to do it where it's kind of a progress payment based on kind of some minor things achieved. So we're actually going through that process now. And we will talk to Kern Tree to figure that process out. We're still working on it internally, but it's kind of a weird thing with this pot of money we have, the CAP funds, where we do get ability to get them ahead of time, but we can't give them ahead of time before our project is actually completed. So, but we're trying to work on progress payments and trying to figure it out now. So that's the answer I have for you on that. It was kind of a bummer, but it's we're trying to figure it out now.
And the same thing, I was going to say the same thing would be, I'm assuming, or we are collectively assuming, when it comes time for vegetative barriers, depending on who the partner is, if the similar agency would like to be involved, we might have to have the same issue resolved with CARB.
Another thing was, I think, the longevity of taking care of the trees. I think it was like 10 years.
Yeah, and that's actually directly from CARB. It's a CARB requirement, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it came from CARB requirement in their other state-funded tree programs, we call them, have the same requirement, whether it's CAL FIRE or I think there's one other program as well that has that in there. And so we actually tried to get rid of that for the trees we have in Stockton and Fresno, and we kept getting told no. has to be there because we're not going to spend this money and have them die within 5 years and all for nothing type of thing. So we want to make sure they secure water maintenance, make sure that it's there, and it's, you know, because they figure up to 10 years it's going to make it. Is kind of was the thought behind all that. So.
And then my other question just was, I had joined in on the Valier on the sidewalk up 43 and for the colony. So I was just wondering if that went to CARB or kind of what the status was on that and when we could maybe see some cement going in those areas.
Yeah, I have a couple things for you on that. One, we did go to our board and got it approved. Those plans are actually still with CARB, both of them. Sorry, kind of both of them because they're kind of different, separate together type of thing. But so you have the colony, plus you have the kind of 43 roundabout type area, we'll call them. One's a city, one's a county. But we're actually doing right now, we're actually working with the city and county now. I know you know David Lopez, he was on the phone today with them, because we have to have a contract with them to do it. So we're kind of starting the groundwork for that now, but as we're kind of in parallel to getting the plan approved from CARB. So we're kind of going, and basically they're kind of already done, right? The projects are kind of done as far as like city county goes. It's okay, here's a contract, go type thing. So we're working on that. I get actually the details in the contract, make sure we're on the same page there. So that's the update to that, and we're still waiting to hear from CARB on the final approval of those two.
When is it, or are we waiting for one of their meetings?
No, we have this internal thing with CARB, and we submit back and forth, and we'll submit a plan. They have some comments. We'll kind of answer the comments. So, but I think we've answered the comments now, and so we should be in the final phase here to get these things done.
So once these things get approved and it goes to the city or county, then are they going to have to go through another RFP process? I mean, are we looking at probably a couple years for this, or do you think it would happen sooner than later?
Alexa hand is raised, Aaron. I think Alexa can answer that for the county.
Yeah, I'll let the county answer that better than I can. Yes.
Hi, Linda. I can sort of speak to a construction schedule for the county. As soon as we get a contract signed, it would have to go to our board as well and have a review to get a contract signed. We would start the design process, which could take up to a year. And then we would have to put out a contract for construction, which could take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And then construction could begin, which could take, again, maybe 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
I was thinking by the time the contract signed as a 2-year process. Projects that I'm thinking.
Okay. And then
I think, Alexa, would I be correct on that roughly? We do it probably 2 years from the time we execute a contract, roughly, probably.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you guys are still talking, sorry, back to Jessica and Aaron about the bike lanes infrastructure with Steve. I know you said that, or someone said in the beginning that he had been out of the office, but that's still.
So one of the questions was just to connect with the city on talking about like the rest of the infrastructure, correct? Because we do have a little bit more funding left in that pot to do other projects. So maybe we can provide an update about that at the next meeting. We did talk with Steve. I think we shared back and forth with you some of the bike lane sort of plans that we found, right? And so maybe that's something we can share with the committee at our next meeting.
And then also that area that we talked about, just because I'm bringing up bike lanes again, on Lerdo and Central, there isn't a sidewalk on the south side, and I think it might have been part of the first agenda item. Is there anything BNSF can do about that? I know like Scott did a great job with BNSF and that where they kept stopping in town, and I can't thank you guys enough. The railroad people seem to be getting out of town instead of causing huge traffic jams with all the cars. So I was just wondering if we could see about it's a dangerous intersection there. I know that they're not really in the sidewalk area, but it's a very, if you Google Earth it's a strange angled, dangerous area, and it's off Lerdo Highway. Even when you go to turn left down Central, like you want to make sure to stop and look. It's pretty dangerous. I'm just worried about people walking across that.
That's definitely something we'll continue to bring that. I see that Steve's here and other folks from the city are listening. keep bringing that up and check in and see what what plans are already in place for those things. As you can see, and what's one thing we like to keep in mind, which is why the 43 and the La Colonia area projects were a little bit easier for the CERP to move forward, is that they're ready made and they'll be done in 2 years. If there's something that's like not even yet like thought out or like designed, just kind of like in concept, I don't think we'll be able to draft something like that and then fund it before the funding deadline, which is actually within the next 2.5 years for the district. So that's projects that were ready made were really easy. But to your point, and I think to your earlier point about bike lanes, checking back in with the city or even the county on other projects that are close to ready or could be ready if it just needed a little bit more funding are the types that we want to target with the remaining funding.
Okay, thank you so much.
You all. Bianca, I believe you had your hand raised. Did you want to ask something or have a comment?
Sorry, I just wanted to let the Air District know that we do have a new member from CRPE that has been joining earlier. I don't know if she introduced herself. We have an attorney, Grecia Orozco. She'll be helping me out with the projects that are happening here in the community and helping the residents in any needs. And I just wanted to introduce her as part of the team now, and just to welcome her.
We're so happy to have her. Can I clarify, and we can talk offline, but did anything change with your primary or alternate, and we just get the benefit of extra support from Grecia?
She's actually going to be my alternative, just in case if I'm not available, she'll be taking over a lot of the logistical.
Okay, cool. We'll follow up with you just so we can clarify that and make sure we have all the right information and get a new application for her.
Great, thank you, Bianca, and thank you, Grecia, for attending. Does anyone have any other questions or comments before we continue? Okay, I don't see anything in the chat and there aren't any hand raised, so we can continue on to our wrap up. Next steps and agenda setting. Just give me 1 second while I share my slides. So I would like to thank you all for engaging in today's meaningful topics that help address your community's concerns around air quality. As we're approaching the end of our meeting, I'd like to take a moment to share a few key updates. Our next agenda setting meeting will take place on Monday, September 19th at 5 p.m. And our next CSC meeting will take place Monday, October 10th at 5 p.m. That's a mistake, it should be 5 on Zoom. On behalf of the Air District and Harder & Company, we'd like to thank all the CSC members in the stipend program for sending in their direct deposit W-9 forms. We really appreciate it. There are still a few people that have not submitted these forms. Our team will be reaching out directly to collect W-9s. Please let us know if you have any questions on how to fill this form out. You can give us a call at 619-398-1980. I will now take a moment to review the action items captured in our tracker during our meeting today. So whenever you're ready, you can share your screen with the action items and I'll read them out. Thank you. Do you mind zooming in a little bit? Okay, Awesome. Can everyone see the action items okay? Okay, perfect. So the first one, the Air District will continue to provide updates to the CSC's recent decision to shift $750,000 in funding from the locomotive switchers. Second update, Air District will provide more information on the air filters, replacement filters that will be provided for Shafter residents, i.e. filter types, cost of future filter replacement, links to filter replacements. Action item 3, bring back moving funds from the locomotive switchers to lawnmowers to the agenda setting meeting for November 2022. 4, vegetative barriers subcommittee members will support RFP process and engagement with future contractors to ensure who gets awarded understands community needs and will be effective at collaborating with local industry. 5, provide updated informational flyers for the community after the governing board approves the residential fireplace measure. Provide updated data from the air monitor that was placed in Mexican Colony and future weekly air monitoring updates. 7, DPR to provide responses to the questions provided by CSC for the October 2022 meeting. 8, Air District has released new CSC membership forms. Please complete and send back to Air District to confirm CSC membership. Does anyone have any questions about any of the action items? Do you think there are any action items that are missing? Are there any changes that you would like to make to the existing action items? Would also like to elevate Dr. Ramos' comment in the chat. There are still a few CSC members who have not submitted administrative forms for stipend program. Please let us know if you have any questions on how to complete W-9s or direct deposit forms. You can call H&Co Facilitation Team at 619-398-1980. Doesn't look like we have any raised hands or comments in the chat, so we'll continue on to the final agenda item. Can you all see my screen okay?
No.
Nope.
Okay, I'm having some, just give me 1 second, sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. We are grateful for all that the CSC has shared during this meeting. At this time, we would like to open up the floor to the public that are in attendance to make any comments. Community member comments are important to this process to ensure that this program is shaped with the community's perspectives in mind. If you would like to make a comment, please raise your Zoom hand or let us know via the chat. Wait another minute or so in case people have final comments or questions.
Not seen any on YouTube Live either, Vanessa.
Thank you, Amy. All right, well, if no one has any questions, comments, or concerns, we can go ahead and conclude the meeting. I'd like to thank you all once again for sharing your valuable comments and for attending. We really appreciate your support and your comments. Jessica Olson, do you have any final remarks that you'd like to share before we end today's meeting?
I'll just share if, oops, unless she left, if Bianca's still on, I'd like to just save some space for Bianca, who, again, I just think did such a good job coordinating with us and does such a good job coordinating with a lot of residents in preparation. So Bianca, any thoughts to share?
Thank you for giving me the space to open it up for the residents. I'm getting back to the rhythm of the whole 617, and I appreciate the district and CARP for giving me the space. And also I wanted to give a remark, because I know the ladies are listening to me, that if they're more than welcome to be the co-host for the next upcoming meeting, I'm here to support, because now that I did it, now they see it, I hope they get inspired to actually do it themselves.
Thank you, Bianca, for your beautiful comment. I also want to echo what Jessica said. It's been great co-hosting with you, and thank you for elevating so many voices today and really contributing to the conversation, and looking forward to more meetings with you as co-host. And yes, also as Jessica said, if anybody else is interested in being a co-host at any future meetings, please let us know. We're happy to support you to make that a reality.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Great, thanks.